Hola muchachos, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes, aquí tienen el horario para hoy, lunes el 15 de noviembre. You guys didn't have any homework due for today, just to study for your Chapter 1B exam, which is coming up here next class. Learning targets for today are to talk and write about who you know and what you know how to do, and information that you know, and then to also talk and write about how long you have been doing some of your extracurricular activities, hobbies and interests. So that exactly is what your warm-up question is for today. ¿Cuánto tiempo hace que participas en un club o deporte? And that question is using the formula that we looked at last class. This is page 58 of your textbook. To ask how long something has been going on, we use this formula. ¿Cuánto tiempo? Asking how long. Hace que? Have you been? And then the present tense verb, which reflects the activity that you've been doing. So, ¿cuánto tiempo hace que eres miembro del club atlético? Eres is the verb ser in the to form, in the present tense. So, this is what the question is asking you for the warm-up today. How long have you been participating in a club or sport or any extracurricular free time activity that you enjoy? And so to respond to that question, and this is what we looked at last week, is to use this formula. Hace, followed by the period of time, the length of time. Años, meses, semanas, días. You're probably going to use either años, which are years, or meses, which are months. Hace, the period of time. Que, and then the verb, the activity you do, the active verb, conjugated in the present tense, more than likely in the yo form. So, for example, hace más de 2 años que soy miembro del club atlético. I've been a member of the athletic club for more than 2 years. Hace, period of time. Que, and then in this case it's the verb ser in the present tense in the yo form, which would be soy. But you don't need to use soy. You could use the verb participar, practicar, jugar, nadar, tocar un instrumento musical, patinar. Any verb you want to, just make sure to conjugate it in the yo form. So that is your warm-up for today. Basically what we're going to do is go over everything that we've been looking at for these past few weeks for Chapter 1B. We're going to start off first and foremost with the vocabulary, which this vocabulary you could undoubtedly use in your response for the warm-up today, especially for las actividades. Caminar, jugar videojuegos, leer, tocar un instrumento musical, trabajar, correr, etc. So, focusing or re-looking at the vocabulary that we looked at the very beginning of the chapter, and then also going to, take a quick glance, at the new vocabulary that we looked at with regard to extracurricular activities. The activities themselves, this is on page 46, the participants, like animador, animadora, are cheerleaders. Músico and música are musicians. You have a few other activities there toward the bottom. And then some more extracurriculars on page 47. So hopefully you're able to pull at least one or two extracurriculars or hobbies or interests that you can relate to. And then in terms of what's going to be on your test, that's the vocabulary component. The grammar component, there are 3 parts. The first part is making comparisons with tan and tanto. This is what we looked at a couple weeks ago, to make comparisons of equality. Inequality we looked at as well, and you have those on the right-hand side when you want to use an adjective to say how something is more or less than, using a descriptive adjective. If you take a look at your warm-up from a couple weeks ago, you guys made statements comparing 2 of your classes. You did an excellent job with that. But equality uses either tan or tanto. When you want to compare 2 things and how they're the same or similar or equal to one another. And the difference between tan and tanto is tan is used with adjectives when you're describing 2 things and how they're the same. Tanto, however, is used with a noun when you're indicating that something has as much or as many of something as another subject. And then remember that tanto agrees in both gender and number, if the noun is masculine or feminine or singular or plural, and that's how we distinguish the different forms of tanto and when they're used. So we'll talk about that as well. And then saber and conocer we'll spend some time on, talking about how saber and conocer both mean the verb to know. And that we use them to talk about what we know and who we know. Saber would be more for what we know, in terms of information or facts. And remember, interrogatives like qué, quién, cómo, cuándo, dónde, por qué will be your clues for information, whereas verbs would be the key for the content clue for whenever saber is used with an infinitive to talk about what you know how to do. So infinitives to talk about knowing how to do something, and then interrogatives as a clue to know facts or information. Conocer, on the other hand, is quite simple. It's just to know a person or place. If we didn't do it last week, we'll do exercise 16 as a practice, filling in the blanks with the correct form of either saber or conocer, and then using those context clues to help inform your decision. So we'll do that in class together. That's exercise 16 on page 57. And then the only other topic that's going to be on the test on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on if you're A day or B day, is what we let off with in the warm-up, using hace with expressions of time to indicate how long you've been doing something. What else is on the agenda for today? And I appreciate you being patient watching this video. I know it's quite long, but just want to make sure you guys are all caught up for those of you who weren't able to make it to class. In addition to exercise 16, we'll have an in-class review assignment. That's core workbook pages 22 and 23. You can access that by clicking right here in the agenda, and your homework is to submit that by the end of today, and then to also study for your test. Study the page numbers, the concepts that I just identified for you in the video. Core page 22 is using tan or tanto to create these sentences, comparing the 2 subjects on either side of the sentence. And these are comparisons of equality, right? So basically there's 2 things that you need to do to complete these sentences. The first thing is to conjugate the verb that's provided for you. More often than not, it's going to be the verb ser or the verb tener. The verb ser can be found on page 5. So there you have the conjugations of ser. how to conjugate it according to the subject that's provided, whether that subject is singular or plural, and from the first, second, or third person perspective. That'll help you out in terms of figuring which form to use. And then for the verb tener, it's on page 15. And there you have the verb tener, what we looked at the beginning of the year. So again, for this sentence, or for these sentences, the first thing you're going to do is conjugate ser, or whatever verb that they provide you. In this case, ser would be es, because you're talking about a singular subject. And then in between the verb provided and the word that follows, you're going to figure out whether to use tan or tanto. And what informs your choice is whether the word here is a noun or an adjective. If it's an adjective, like popular, popular, it's an adjective, right? Then you're going to use tan. Or if the word that's being used to compare is a noun, like in the example here, clubes, which means clubs, it's a thing, then you're going to figure out whether that noun is masculine or feminine, singular or plural, and that'll help you determine which form of tanto to use. Clubes is masculine plural. I know it's harder to figure out if it's masculine because it ends in es, which is gender neutral, but you could always throw in to the dictionary the word that you have a question about. If you're trying to figure out the part of speech, it tells you that club is the plural form of club, but it doesn't tell you if it's oh, there it is, masculine noun. So that's a way that you can double check your work there. And so that's how we got tantos, because clubes is masculine plural. So use those as a model to complete numbers 1 through 7, and then the only other page you're doing is page 23. Again, this is core pages 22 and 23. Filling in the blanks here with the correct form of saber or conocer. For example, the first blank would be saber. Excuse me, because you're talking about tocar el piano is a skill. Sabe, because we're talking about Ramon in the third person singular. And there you have your conjugations of saber and conocer. That's on page 56. Ramon sabe tocar el piano. Él quiere ser miembro de la banda, pero no. And then director is a person. So we're going to use conocer for that one. And how to conjugate it? Well, you do it the same way as the first blank, which is in the third person singular, conoce. Decide hablar con su amiga Susana. Oye, Susana, ¿sabes quién es el director de la banda? What's our clue for saber here? I know you're thinking maybe director de la banda, that's a person, right? But we have an interrogative here. ¿Quién? Remember, ¿quién? ¿Cuánto? ¿Dónde? ¿Por qué? ¿Qué? ¿Cómo? ¿Cuándo? Those are all interrogatives. Anytime you see an interrogative in a sentence, and actually both the third and fourth blank are going to be saber because we have interrogatives there. I know this is in the to form because of the fact that it's in the form of a question, right? Because Ramon is talking to Susana. Susana is responding to Ramon in the yo form. So this would be sabes for that third blank. And then the response would be in the yo form, say. So that is your homework for, or in-class activity rather, for today's class. We'll take questions on Chapter 1B that you have, but I think you guys are going to feel hopefully more than prepared for your test on Chapter 1B. And don't forget to submit those workbook pages as well in Canvas. And I look forward to seeing y'all in class, muchachos. Que tengan un buen día. Adiós.